Okay. So, even though this is an utterly pointless test, I've got to do what they've done, and I'm going to start flicking some shoes because that's what they've done. I don't understand what this test proves about a carbon plate, other than it's as strong as steel. So by flicking a shoe around, it means you can run faster. Whatever. So we're just going to give them a test because it's fun. Boost Steps Pro Carbon Fiber Insoles. Let's take a look and give them a test. You may have seen the advert for Pro Boost Steps. Now I picked these up just before Christmas. Now this video isn't sponsored by Boost Steps, and I wanted to do an unbiased and a complete kind of test on these insoles. These basically putting trainers on the floor, flicking the trainers. A guy will run across a field and then runs again in these, and it supposedly makes him fast. So the idea behind these carbon fiber plates from Boost Steps are as inserts into your shoe, and they're supposed to make you faster, or mechanically faster, just like any normal super shoe would, but without the super shoe price. So on the packet it even says that the energy return is 12 times, 90% increase in thrust, 20% enhanced stability, 10% better performance, 15% reduced strain on the foot, and 10% improves directional change. Now, I have no idea what this is based upon. One of the things that the company does say is that all those stats are based upon a foam insert of a shoe. So the comparison between a carbon fiber insole of this, I'm going to take it out of the packet now to give you a first glance, is that this carbon fiber, which is stronger than aluminium, is comparable to a foam insert. Now, first of all, this is like comparing a piece of cake to a brick. So their whole comparison is between a foam insert in a shoe, this is a Mount Coast insert, towards a carbon plate. So this is absolutely, first of all, a ridiculous claim. So to give these Boost Steps a fair go, I've got 3 types of shoes here I'm going to put them into. Now, again, these are not shoes that I dislike, these are shoes that I actually really quite like. So I've gone for a sort of higher stack shoe, a kind of mid stack shoe, and a kind of no stack shoe. So the first shoe I'm going to test them in is this New Balance Fresh Foam 1080 version 14. On its own, I think this is a brilliant shoe, surprisingly fast shoe. And I picked this because this is kind of not a high stack shoe, but a high risk stack shoe. So I wanted to see a Boost Step in a higher stacked, really excellent foam shoe as an insert. And then the next one is probably one of my favorite shoes of last year, is this P1. Now, this is a PBA light cell foam in the shoe, and I think on its own this is a fast shoe. There is a lot of tech in here, and I love the shoe. So I want to see what this is like. Is it improved with a insole of a carbon plate? And then the last one is I'm basically going to test it out on a really flat shoe, so a plimp sole. There's a little bit of foam in this. Now, the reason why I'm picking this shoe is basically because the only thing pretty much I will feel in this shoe is that carbon plate. Today we're going to go to the track, and we are going to test out these Boost Steps. Now, I wanted to do the test because I've seen them, and as I review shoes, number one is this just a gimmick, just to prize you of your hard-earned cash? And saw a lot of the claims on there. Now, the problem that I've got with these claims are that they are big claims. Now, and I never thought that I'd be defending super shoes, is that, you know, at least they are mechanically tested. The plates foams are designed around each other in a lot of the time, and the shoes are engineered pretty much to do what they're supposed to do, right? And you know, at least they are not designed on purpose to sort of injure you as such. Now, my problem with these Boost steps is that they're just an insert of carbon fibre. Now, it does not say anything that I've seen whereby the impact of carbon fibre, especially if you've never used carbon fibre before, that's why you see a lot of these shoes. That's why you see a lot of these shoes sold after the fact, because they basically just hurt your feet if you haven't practiced in carbon plate shoes. Now, the problem with carbon plate shoes, yes, they give you a boost, yes, when they're used with a foam, they can be really good, but the problem with that is that it's the energy return through that spring that can go through your knees, can hurt your knees. Sometimes, even though I've ran now in a couple of years in those, and I've run lots and lots, hundreds of times in carbon plate shoes, on the odd occasion I still really feel my knees past with the age, but you know. So today's a perfect day to come to the track to do this test of the Boost Pro carbon plates. I think I previously said I was going to do 1k per lap, so like 3k, so in each shoe. So one as a warm up in each shoe, another one as a tempo pace without the carbon plate, and then another one as a tempo pace with the carbon plate in. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to do 2 laps instead. So in terms of meters, that's 800. So I'm going to do 800 per each test of the shoe. And yeah, let's get to it. Just a little bit annoyed at myself right now for not doing the first tempo run and then recording that like on its own, because I'll have to try and dig through the data of the of that first run, because it incorporates the slow one and the fast run. But to be honest with you, Boost steps, they don't feel amazing. I don't think they're gonna change anyone's life. I think if you've never had a carbon plate before and you don't know what it's like, and you stick these in your shoe, depending on the shoe, it's going to feel good compared to nothing. But to compare it to foam, comparing it to an insert, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. So now we're going to go out in the P1s. So these bad boys here. So we're now going to go out in the P1s. Just a foam warm up, and then we're going to come back, put the carbon plates in these. I hope it gets easier, because putting this carbon plate in a man. Alright, so it's the tempo for the P1 done. So that's the tempo in the P1 done. Quite surprising results, really. Pleased with that. And now I've just got to take the Boost step and put it in this P1. Putting Boost steps in are not easy, and guess why? Because they're not designed for your shoe. I'm interested now to see how these go. So I've decided, for health reasons, as much as it would be funny, I'm not going to do the plimsoll test, because it will just destroy my knee. My knee's really sore. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do 2 miles in the carbon plate at a sort of easy pace in the carbon Boost steps. I'm going to do 2 miles in the 1080s. I'm going to change them over and then do 2 miles in the Manth Coast. So and then just to see how that feels. I'll get back to you in a sec. Immediate thoughts on the Boost steps is that they're not awful. I don't think they're terrible. Is it what I was expecting? Yes. I felt fine in the New Balance 1080 version 14s. I think that's because of the way that the shoe's made. I think it's because of the geometry of the shoe, and I think because of that, I think the Boost Steps carbon plates I think felt fine. They were a pain to get in because of course they can't fit every single shoe. It's impossible. Then on the P1s, the Mount Coasts, they were dreadful, I'm going to say. They definitely didn't bring anything to the shoe. I thought that actually made the shoe worse. It didn't feel good in the shoe at all. It's just because they're not made again for every shoe. It's impossible to fit every single shoe, and they just didn't feel good in P1. So I think immediately they're not dreadful, but the claims that they have, especially comparing it to foam insoles, I mean, I think if that's the best they can come up with, it's just like comparing, and I've said this 3 or 4 times, it literally is just like comparing a brick to some sponge. Like the two are just not the same thing. So you know, you can only really compare carbon plate to another carbon plate, and because of that, I know I didn't. The plan was to wear plimsolls, but there's just absolutely no way I was going to risk injury in putting those into already firm shoes. It was just no way. So, you know, in terms of a carbon plate, you get what you get. It's a carbon plate. I didn't feel anything special, so I was going to go back now, think about it a little bit more, and then and then give you an overall opinion on them.
We're now going to put these Boost Steps into a selection of running trainers here. So we've got 4 different types, and it doesn't really matter which Boost Step you use. You can kind of put it in whichever way you want, so left and right to left. So again, one of the downsides I think to this is that you cannot mass produce people's feet. So even though these are a size 9, they are pretty much the kind of same size, same width, same length per this size. So really interested to see how well they fit into a variety of shoes. We have a range of shoes here today. So we have a carbon plated racing shoe all the way through to kind of some easy day trainers. So we've got the left shoe on each of these for a fair comparison. As I say, it doesn't really matter about which Boost that you use because they are both pretty much the same shape, and you can kind of flip them over to use whichever one in whichever shoe. So we have this New Balance Fuel Cell Elite version number 2 as a kind of race style shoe to see how they fit inside there. The Adidas Boost Solar, I think this is the 5 or 6. So just to see how this fits into kind of this style of a shoe as well. We have the New Balance 1080 version 14. So this is a newer shoe. I want to see how this kind of fits into something like this New Balance 1080, because there is kind of some stability parts in the shoe where the sides they flare up just to give you that support. I'm wondering how well this carbon plate will embed itself in that shoe. And then of course we have the Saucony Triumph 21 as well. So this is a kind of quite a big stack, kind of everyday shoe, Power Run Plus. Now the reason, guess why I've picked these shoes, because I think these are kind of shoes whereby you kind of want to add a carbon plate, particularly in these 3 shoes here that are pretty much all foam, other than the Solar Boost 5 here, which has a torsion plate, which is not really a carbon plate, but it does have a torsion plate. So these are kind of more the shoes that you would use every day that are pure foam. And if you're going to add a sort of carbon plate as a test, and you'd want to add it into these kind of shoes, and just kind of as an offset, kind of have a racing style, the first racing carbon plate shoe that I had to hand. So we're going to see now how these fit into those kinds of shoes. So let's see how easy or hard it is to put in a BOOST carbon plate into one of these shoes. So you need to remember that you need to take out the insole. So don't put the BOOST step on top of the midsole, because you're going to basically have a horrible time. So as you can see, the recommendation with these BOOST soles is to take out the insole and take that out and put it underneath. So it's going to take out the insole now, which is this here. So this is a size 9, and it's kind of roughly about the same shape. Now the idea is that this sits underneath there, and then you put your insole on top. Now, like so many other shoes with foams, the ideal position for the BOOST carbon plate is to be embedded within the foam itself, but we can look at that in the video. So this is just to see how well it fits into a variety of shoes. I'm just going to pop it into the shoe now, and you kind of almost need to flex it into the shoe and try and get it into that shoe there. It's a little bit caught there, so it is a little bit loose fitting within that shoe, but it's gone in reasonably okay. And we'll put the foam insert back in there as well. So the foam insert should fit in as before. And I pop that in there now. And as a fitting, I'd say that is quite simple, quite easy to get into the shoe. So this is quite a wide shoe as well. So it's quite easy to get it into this sort of shoe. So that was a pretty good and nice easy test to get out as well. See how easy or hard this is to get out. And again, pretty easy as that to put in and out of the Adidas Solar Boost number 5. Now we're going to try this race style Elite, Fuel Cell Elite version 2 by New Balance. The same thing time after time. The BOOST steps are comparing themselves to insoles. Now, carbon fiber is 5 times stronger than steel, so comparing it to a foam insert, as per all of the literature, as opposed to all of the videos, I think is not a fair comparison. Even though this is a size 9, I'm going to struggle to get this in, I think. If you can see that, I'm going to try and push this in. And I'm going to take this off camera to try to get this in here as well. So obviously this is advertised as putting it into different shoes to make it go faster. And this is a good example whereby, even though this is a size 9, it's not going to fit onto the 1080 version 14. Now, full disclosures, I know that it fits in here because I've already taken this out on a test in the video. Whether this is before or after this piece, I've taken these out to try the BOOST step in this shoe reasonably well there. So the plate is in there, sits nicely. Now, what I will say is that, to be fair to BOOST steps, it fits really well in this 1080 version 14. The 1080 version 14 does not need a carbon plate. That's one thing to say straight away. But if you are going to put in a carbon plate into a shoe just to test it out, this version 14 does actually fit this carbon plate really well. Carbon plate is not terrible in these, and I think that is because of the shoe. I think that is because of the shape of the 1080 version 14, because of how the geometry of the shoe is. The fact that it kind of rises up a little bit there with the foam, it gives a really good bed for a carbon plate in there. It's not perfect, but if you wanted an example of whereby a plate, you can put it into a shoe and it kind of works a little bit. You can put it into the version 14 1080, but that's more about the shoe being so good as opposed to the carbon plate adding something to the shoe. And then last but no means least is this Triumph 21, a trainer that I really want to like. It's got all the parts there that I should like, but I just kind of just didn't really get on with it. In terms of, I just don't think there's anything
spectacular about the shoe. Now, interestingly enough about this Saucony Triumph 21 is that this insole is pretty good actually. It's got that Power Run Plus insole in the shoe, which actually does make it really comfortable. So I really like this insert. However, still trying to compare and match stats up against a carbon plate that's stronger than steel, up against a piece of foam, again, I think is absolutely ridiculous, and I'm going to keep banging on about that. First time I'm putting in the carbon plate into this shoe. Again, where there's a little bend in the shoe, it's always going to be a bit difficult. Again, quite easy to put into this sort of shoe. So this is a plush, kind of wide comfort shoe, so I'll be expecting any sort of plate in the insert to fit steadily and easily into this shoe, which it does. And then I'm going to put the foam insert on top of that as well. I've not tried this shoe out yet with the foam insert in it, but I wonder if this is an actual shoe that will feel better for having a carbon plate in the shoe, just because of the foam is I don't think it's a good foam, but I just don't think it adds anything. And I wonder if that carbon plate will add something to the foam. So I might give that a try. I might not, but I'm really keen to see if it can improve this shoe.